Happy Friday. Not much going on over here today, but I just thought I'd tune in and just see if there's anyone out there with any questions that I can answer. This is kind of like my version of Freaky Friday. If you want to know more about channeling, if you're interested in mediumship, or if you're just beginning down your journey of awakening and seeking spiritual guidance, either from your guides or from angels, people who've crossed over, happy to answer any of those questions. Yeah. It's been a minute since I started down this path, and it's been very interesting how everything has evolved, got me to the point where I am now, and it's like it's been 25 years where I feel like this path has been chasing me down. And, I had forays into other things. I've had a lot of different options in my career, directions on where to go, and I kind of always stayed away from the woo-woo for a long time. It just seemed like it was a little bit out there compared to the path that everybody else was going down. And, I think when we're younger, there's a lot of influence with our peer group, people that we go to school with, people we go to college with, friends, family, all of that. And there are really great examples of people who kind of just cut through that and got straight to it, and they got on their spiritual journey, and they're doing amazing things in the world. And I have always been inspired by people who are living so authentically, living their path, their way, and doing what it is that they need to do to move it forward. Channeling was not where I started off. I started reading tarot cards 25 years ago. I bought my first deck when I was in Australia, when I was living there. And I remember going into this great shop in Byron Bay, and I was talking with the shop owner or the shopkeeper, and I just kind of asked her, I said, okay, well, how is it that you choose a deck? And she just said, most people just feel drawn towards it. They feel a pull towards certain deck, or, they'll hold it in their hands and they feel energy, and, you choose something that kind of jumps out at you and stands out for you. And that's exactly what I ended up doing. I totally found the most beautiful tarot deck, and it's a very unusual deck. I've seen them in stores. I've never met anybody else who reads with that particular deck. And for a long time, that was my go-to. I really love tarot cards. I think there's a lot of insight to be gained, but it's also limited if you're not tuning into the wisdom that's available in the field that's around you, in the energy that's around you. And you need to be listening for that. If you've got your head stuck on, well, these cards mean a specific thing, and even though I'm feeling something else, and you don't go there and you don't start to kind of explore or listen to that or attune to that particular knowledge that's coming, that's where readings can kind of go sideways. And I've had a lot of tarot readings done by other people. I find that most people who are psychics, mystics, whatever, they have people that they go to. And I always feel like it's just doing a check. Just checking in with someone else that what it is that I'm getting is right at that time, and that it's what I needed to know for my personal development, not relating to anybody else, but what's happening with me. And it's always been reassuring because generally speaking, I'll do a reading for myself before I go for a reading. And then the reading that they do is so similar to the one I just did for myself. I'm like, okay, that's confirmation. I did have a really, really interesting reading done through a psychic school that's in California, and they train people and they sometimes give away free readings. And what they do is vastly different. There is a lot of, it feels like a lot of ceremony or ritual around how they read. And it was a beautiful experience. And it was really fascinating to listen to somebody who was being coached at the same time that they were doing the reading. And for them, it's kind of like a blind reading. They mute you while they're doing the reading over the phone. And because they just want to go ahead and they just want to do the reading. And after it's all said and done, and this was like 90 minutes, it was impressive. They then take you off mute and they say, so do you have any questions, or do you have any, thing that you want to know, or comments? And it was so wild. Hi, thanks for joining. It was really wild to get to the end of this reading and have somebody tell me things about myself that nobody has ever put their finger on. If you're just joining me now, I'm talking about when I had a reading done by a student in California over the phone. And I can't remember for the life of me what the name of that school was. But if you're curious, I can dig it up. Send me a message in my DMs, or just put a comment down after this video gets posted to my account, and I will try and find the name for you. But like I was saying, this was a 90-minute reading, and they told me so much about myself that I already knew. And a lot of it had to do with my spiritual journey and where I was at. And at this time, this was a few years ago, I was probably meditating like at least a few hours a day, really intense leg of my spiritual journey. And it was so beautiful to have them say, you know what, the guides, the whatever it is you want to put your label on, the people that have crossed over, the spirits, whatever, they were acknowledging the work that I had been putting in. And what I was told was, they see you and they see you doing the work. And that was so comforting. And it was really the first time that I'd have ever had anybody articulate it like that. Because the difference between that kind of psychic reading that they did versus tarot cards, you can have some people who are really tuned in and that have great intuition around cards. The way I particularly used to use my cards was I would use the little guidebook that came along with it, and fabulous stories, beautiful imagery, but there were keywords. And I really liked that they were just keywords, because I would just go through the list and I would go, oh yeah, that feels right. No, that doesn't seem quite right. And I would just intuit what it was that we needed to get from that card in the position that was in relation to the other cards. Well, when this psychic reading was happening for me, I think they may have drawn cards. It wasn't a video reading that I had. It was just, it was on the phone. And thanks for joining us. And anyway, it was so cool. It was so cool to have people take me down this metaphoric journey, because they actually start talking about your life path and past lives. And they use a metaphor of a rose and the stem and different things that are at different parts of the stem, kind of representing different parts of your multiple incarnations, or where it is that you are at now, and what does the rose look like? Is it really full? Is it wilted? Is it dry? It was beautiful. Still totally different than what I did, but it was such a great experience to have someone else confirm the work that I was doing, that I was on the right path, and just tell me lovely things about how they perceived me on my journey. So anyhow, like I said before, if you are interested in that particular school of psychics and the readings that they have students do for people for a discounted rate or sometimes for free, I can dig that up. Just leave me a comment later, or you can actually comment now and I will follow up with you later. But, it's interesting what people will gravitate to. So what do you gravitate to? Do you gravitate towards chiromancy? Do you like, what's the word for it? Sorry, drawing a blank at the moment. But when you hold objects, essentially, and you're reading the energy around the object, are you drawn to mediumship? Are you drawn to using a pendulum? Do you use runes? Do you like tarot cards? Do you have more than one deck of tarot cards? I know I do, and I don't use them for the same purpose or in the same way. In the last couple of years, though, there's been a lot less reliance upon tarot, just because when you get to a place where you can alter your state and start channeling wisdom that's coming from source, cards almost feel like they're superfluous and that they're getting in the way. Not that I don't use them. I do. I've been experimenting with building my own readings, and there's one that I really enjoy. And if you read cards for yourself or for others, you might want to try this. Set up your cards like a clock, and the clock essentially represents months of the year. So you start at the top and you go 12, 1, 2, 3, and you go all the way around. And you put a card in the center, and that's kind of like your final outcome or destiny. And it is really cool, the information that you can get by doing that, because you can set the intention that each position of the clock will represent the month in a year. And it's a simple way of doing a reading for yourself or for someone else. And by the way, I've heard there's different schools of thought as far as whether or not you should be reading cards for yourself. Some people say that you shouldn't and it's bad luck. That is at a very low vibration. When you are channeling information, you can channel it for yourself, you can channel it for others. Sometimes you don't know who it's coming through for, but I totally encourage people to seek guidance in whatever way it is that they like to connect with source and get information. And one of the reasons I started reading tarot cards 25 years ago was I was traveling alone in Australia. I did know a couple of people that were scattered around the countryside that I did happen to spend some time with when I was there. I was living over there for a year. But I had met somebody that I was working with because I was on a working holiday visa. And she had told me how she'd been reading for years and had traveled to all of these beautiful places, Africa included. And she said, no, sometimes I will just sit down and read for myself because I need to have a question answered. Do I stay or do I go? Are these people good people for me to be hanging out with right now? Or do I just kind of need to move on? Is there something waiting for me ahead of time or ahead in my journey? So go ahead, do your readings, use your pendulums, use your crystals, use your cards, use whatever it is, if that is what you're comfortable with, and just believe that you are setting the intention to get information that is for your greatest good and for just the general greater good of humanity or people. Vibrate at a high frequency. Think about elevating your vibration. You want to think about getting the information that is going to show the most guidance and in hopefully the least painful way possible. Our lessons are not always painless. It's the pain that helps us appreciate the happiness and the good things that come along. So allow yourself to be with the perceived quote unquote negative experiences that you have. And instead of viewing it as a negative, just see it as a stepping stone on your journey. So instead of saying, this is bad, what happened, there was an accident, my lover and I are no longer together, a relationship fell apart, my friends are distancing themselves, my kids are being horrific. There's all kinds of things that you can look at in your life and not be satisfied with how they're unfolding. But if you just look at it from the perspective of, this is a challenge that you need to overcome to get to your next evolution, take that step and just believe that it's so, and that you will get through it. You're not being given anything that you can't handle, and that the lessons that are there for you are only meant to gently nudge you in the right direction. So it's a beautiful thing when you stop looking at everything that is happening to me. Instead of thinking, oh, this was done to me, this happened to me, think that it happens for you. It's happening for you. It's opening things up. It's clearing things out of your path. It's giving you a new direction. Something that I really got recently from my guides when I was channeling, and I do that in an altered state, just meditating. And I have been experiencing a 10-year period of ill health, we'll say. And it's gotten so much better in the last 3 to 4 years. And I'm really heading back out into the world full force because I'm a social person and I love engaging with new people and doing my best to provide guidance wherever I can. But the crisis, this health journey that I've been on, it always left me feeling a little bit afraid. Because what happens if I have another massive flare? What happens if I end up in the hospital? What happens if, my back goes out and that happens to me? I wake up some days and my back is out. And that has to do with my own, personal health challenges that I have. Because I have a rare condition. It's called hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And it's, it's funny because I will have all of these plans, and I've had all of these plans, and you wake up one morning and you can barely get out of bed because my back goes out in my sleep. It's really annoying. But I also go, now talking with my guides, I'm like, is this over? Is this crisis over? And they said yes. They said, and your guides have a sense of humor, okay? And a lot of people in the woo-woo, they take themselves very, very seriously. There's no sense of ha-ha. I can tell you that my guides and the people that have crossed over, they love a joke. They love to play with you. And what they said to me in that vein was, the only thing we could do to stop you from going down a path that was not meant for you was to give you this experience of having chronic illness for a long time. And that experience has served you well. You learned what you needed to learn. You have let go of what you needed to let go. And now you get to start anew down the path that you are meant to be on. And that was so beautiful. But it was there's this meme that goes around the chronic illness community where the only thing tough enough to kick my own ass or to kick my ass is me. And that was essentially what they were saying. It was a play on that. They were saying it was the only thing we could do to slow you down and make you stop and really assess what's important in your life. And I'm a single mom. I have a great kid who is absolutely awesome at 16. We're really, really close. And I have had a lot of mommy guilt through that journey. I've had a lot of missed opportunities. That's what it felt like to me in that moment. And now I look at it and I go, I needed to have those experiences so that I could relate to other people that were going through the same kind of thing and help them see the way out. Because when you get to a frequency or a vibratory state that you are in the feeling of, I can heal myself and I can do it now, that doesn't mean there aren't setbacks, okay? But you can absolutely turn your crisis around, whether it's health, whether it's finances, whether it's relationships. And this is not messing with free will, okay? This is not asking for somebody else to do something or for somebody else to change their mind or to see you differently. This is all about what's happening in you and what's resonating with you. So take the time when something negative happens to look at it and go, how is this going to serve me down the road? And just put it in the parking lot. Just leave it there. You can go back and look at it 2 months down the road, a year down the road, a few years down the road, and you can reflect on that challenge and go, aha, it stopped me from doing this. Have you ever been driving along in your car and the traffic just is inexplicably slow? You get stuck behind the slow boat to China. You feel like you are crawling at a snail's pace and you can not get where you're going fast enough because it just seems like there are blocks in front of you. Have you ever gotten down your drive and realized that had you been ahead 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute, that you would have been in a collision? Has that ever happened to you? There's a reason for that. There's a reason why some blocks or obstacles get put in front of you temporarily. So it's hard when it happens, but only in that moment. And if you can stop your monkey mind from going down the rabbit hole of saying, every time something good happens, something bad happens, I start feeling good, and all of a sudden there's another catastrophe that shows up in my life. Okay, the more you say that to yourself, the more you will bring that into being. So, they call it spelling when you're taking words and you're writing letters and you're doing it correctly. What you speak becomes your reality. So if you believe that every time something good in your life is going really great, that something bad will arrive, you're going to make that happen. And it's not that you deliberately do anything. It's your vibration. It's your frequency. It is your state of being. So think about that really hard, because you can change that. Who runs that shit? You do. You run what goes on in your mind. And breaking loops, breaking patterns, breaking ways of being and creating something new out of it, that is the basis of your transformative experience in your life. So take those blocks, turn them into something else, turn them into gratitude. I'm so grateful. Oh my God, there must be a reason why I am not ahead of where I am now. It's because where you are now is perfect. It's exactly where you're supposed to be. So just live in it. And if you're going through it right now and you're having a bad day, it's just a day. It doesn't have to be the rest of your life. And if you're going through a lot and it's been going on for a long time, you can still make a choice. You can make a decision to view your situation from a different perspective. see the lesson, see what is being brought forward. Did you get fired from a job? Did you recently quit a job? Did you recently end something, whether it was a friendship or a relationship or anything like that? It hurts. The more you push the hurt down, the longer it's going to be there. Whatever you resist will persist. So take the time to just be with the feelings. Let the tears come, let the angry and the frustration, let it just come out of you. Because the more it stays in you, the more you will get of that. When you are able to still your mind, and it doesn't mean hours of meditation. I love hours of meditation because that's very blissful for me. It's a happy state. I find myself laughing a lot when I'm meditating because I'm connecting with my guides. I'm connecting to Source, and I'm feeling the love and all of the abundance and the energy that is out there. You don't have to meditate for hours on end to get into an altered state. To get there, you can actually do it in like 2 to 3 breaths. There's a couple of techniques that you can use, but the simplest thing to remember, it's a really easy rule of thumb, okay? When you inhale, you want your exhale to be twice as long. So if you count 4 in, you want to exhale 8 out, okay? Take a couple of breaths like that and do the counting in your head. Focus on your breath. And when you are exhaling longer than your inhale, twice as much, it's just easy to remember, right? I usually inhale for 4, exhale for 8. Focused on that. And the exhale, the long exhale and the slow breathing helps to trigger your vagus nerve, and also it puts your body into a state where it feels safe. Shallow breathing generally represents stress and trauma in the body. So, if you're in a fight or flight situation, probably your breathing is erratic. It's shallow. It's all over the place. You might feel a little bit lightheaded, or you might feel dizzy. Okay. If you've ever had something really, really stressful happen, you know what I'm talking about. And pretty well everybody has had a stressful experience that has just kind of brought up these feelings that you have no idea where they came from. So go back to your breath. Even in an emergency, even in a crisis. Inhale for 4. And then exhale for 8. Do that a couple of times, and your body will relax. Your nervous system will relax. Another breath that is really great, this is the second technique I want to share with you, is a 4-7-8 breath. This was given to me by a naturopathic doctor I was seeing many, many moons ago. And the 4-7-8 breath is essentially the same thing as doing a 4-8 count, except there's a breath hold in the middle. So you inhale for 4, you hold for 7, and then you exhale for 8. And that breath hold, if any of you are fans of Joe Dispenza, you know that he talks about activating your pineal gland. And you can do that with breath holding techniques. Well, this isn't necessarily a breath that will get you to the point where you are activating those crystals that are in your brain. But this definitely gets you to a place where you have to slow your breath down and you have to focus so you don't feel winded, so you don't feel like you're just totally like you can't catch your breath. So a 4-7-8 breath is also really good for your digestion. So it's best to do that one sitting up, and it helps with your internal organs and giving them a little massage. So that's kind of got like a twofold benefit. It helps you get into an altered state where you feel calm, where you feel centered, but you are also doing the internal massage, and you are also helping spinal fluid go up into your brain and activate that gland. You can do research on this fairly easily. I'm not the expert on activating the pineal gland. I would say go look up Joe Dispenza. He's got great books. One of them is called Becoming Supernatural, and he puts it in really plain, easy language. So learn about different altered states. Learn about getting there. Some people find that exercise is their meditation, or it helps to get them into an altered state, or it gets them into that tunnel vision. And I was a skier from the time I was quite young, and skiing was my zen. It was my meditation. I took up running at some point, to help train for skiing, and just the rhythm of running would get me into a place where I had to focus on my breath, because I have exercise-induced asthma. So I really had to work on my breath. And you want to breathe from your belly, people, especially when you're doing a breathing exercise to try and get into an altered state. You don't want to breathe from your chest. You want to breathe from your belly. You want to use your diaphragm. You want those muscles to work and to contract and to help fill your lungs properly. So, I could honestly talk about breathing for the rest of the year. There's so much to learn about breath work, but I'm not here to specialize in breath work. I want to help you learn tricks and simple things that you can do to get you into that state so that you can start connecting to source. And it's at your fingertips. It's right there. So it doesn't feel like it's hard anymore. It's like flexing a muscle. The more you use that muscle and you develop that muscle memory, the easier it is to do that repetitive action, whether it's in sports or whether you're doing yoga. You want to get to a point where it feels so familiar and it is easy and you don't really have to think about it anymore. And I think that's where, when it comes to meditation, a lot of people set meditation goals. I want to meditate for 15 minutes. Okay, what's that going to get you? Why do you want to meditate for 15 minutes? Why not 5 minutes? Why not 1 minute? There was actually a study that was done. Meditation was taught at a prison, and they started teaching the inmates. And you have to imagine, very busy, crowded, loud, lots of noise all the time. Okay. They were taught to meditate, 1 minute a day, 1 minute. And they started to notice that the energy of the prison population changed, and that they were seeing positive impacts from that. There was less combativeness. There was less trouble in the prison, let's say. Okay. And people would say, well, how is it that people can meditate for 1 minute in a prison when it's so loud? It's so loud. There's noise everywhere. How can that make a difference? The more you do it, even if it's just for 1 minute, you start to notice what is different from the noise. So think about the noise that's going on inside your head. It might still be there while you're meditating. Okay. And the more you say, oh, I'm overthinking. Oh, I'm so stuck in my head. Oh, I've got these repeating thoughts. Okay. So the repeating thoughts are there, and that's okay. Just breathe through it and imagine that that is like a snapshot that's going across your screen on your computer, just like a screensaver, and it's gone. Let it go. And you will start to notice, okay, sure, you might be stewing on something, and it might be really irritating because you just can't get something off of your mind, but maybe something will pop in. Maybe you will hear a voice. Maybe you will get a feeling. Maybe you'll get an image. I kind of get all of that. And sometimes it can be a little overwhelming because there's a lot coming at me all at once. So I need to really just slow down and set the intention that whatever message is coming for me, that I am meant to hear it and receive it. So you set the intention so that whatever it is that's going on in your mind, you're still going to get the message. And sometimes the message is what's going on in your mind. Maybe it's something that you need to let go. Maybe it's a conversation you need to have with someone. Maybe it's a conversation that you need to have with yourself. And that is probably the other thing that I would say is the most important thing, is to be kind and gentle with yourself always. Whatever you say to yourself, your subconscious is going to take that and run with it. Okay? There's ways of thinking about consciousness, and one that I particularly enjoy from the coaching program that I got certified in talks about your superconscious and your subconscious. And when I'm describing this to people, I usually tell them your subconscious is a milk-drunk toddler driving a school bus. So whatever it is that toddler is hearing, they're just going to go with it. Okay? That's not the person you want running the bus. So you don't want your subconscious to be fed all of this negativity. I'm not good enough. I'm not strong enough. Why isn't this happening for me right now? The more you talk to yourself in that way, that stays in your subconscious, because that milk-drunk toddler is listening always. It's like kids listening in to their parents talking about Christmas, hoping that they're going to hear something about the presents that they're getting. Okay? Your subconscious is always listening. So what you want to do is you want to feed it the good stuff. You need to show yourself some love. Because essentially when you get to source, you should feel love, peace, happiness, joy. Those are the feelings that you get from being connected to source. Okay? And it's important to say that, because when people are diving into the woo-woo and they're just getting their feet wet, they hear a lot of things. Oh, that's the devil. It's a demon. It's something that's talking through you. How do you know? How can you trust? Okay. Source is love. Source wants the best for all of us. It wants to help you raise your vibration so that you are radiating that love and that joy out in the world wherever you happen to be. If you're not loving yourself right now, that's okay. You will get there. But you have to set an intention that you want to get there. If you are hell-bent for leather, that you are going to hate yourself because of something you did, something you said, something you ate, something you didn't do, somewhere that you went that you weren't supposed to, or you were supposed to be there and you didn't get there. If you keep beating yourself up about that, you will not get to a place easily where you can hear the good things that are coming for you. And that's what channeling has been all about for me. It's been listening to my guides. It's been hanging out with my dad. My dad passed away when my child was 4 months old. My child is 16 now. And when I say hanging out with my dad, I'm talking like I will be connected and I can feel the guidance. I see how he sees himself as a young man now. My dad passed away when he was 71. And he sees himself as a younger man. And this was such a big thing. It was like a massive aha moment for me, because I had people, different psychics for years when I had gone for my own readings. And I had one of them say, there's a young man with dark hair and he's hanging around. I don't know who he is, but he's hanging around. And I was like, I don't know who that could be. I mean, there's a couple of people that I know who've crossed over and that it could have been them. But when I really got my solid connection and really started channeling source and those who've crossed over, I realized that the young man with dark hair was my dad, because that is how he sees himself now. If that seems a little bit too far-fetched for you right now, that's okay. These concepts sometimes need to be planted like a seed and take time to grow. But connecting with source, connecting with people who've crossed over, connecting with angels, all of that stuff, anybody can do it. It's not the chosen few. It might be the people who have set the intention, but anybody can do this. You have access to this. This is something that we all have as an ability throughout humanity to be able to connect to energy and to connect to source. I've been on this journey. I said this at the very beginning when I just went live. So for those of you who've just joined us, I've been reading tarot cards for over 25 years, for about 25 years, I guess. And for the last few years, I've been messaging or channeling messages from source and from people who've crossed over. And I'm happy to get into definitions of, well, what's the difference between channeling and mediumship? What's the difference between being a psychic and being a medium? A lot of it are just varying flavors of the same thing, different levels of connection, different levels of personal evolution, different levels of spiritual development and growth, but anyone can get there. You have to believe that you can do it, though. You know, a lot of people say, oh, wow, that must be really cool. Yeah, you kind of feel a little bit weird when you've had this other sense since you were a kid, when you knew stuff was going to happen, when you knew that people were lying to you, and, you know, when you knew that something wasn't right, or when you knew something really big was coming, and then it arrived. And it's like, you just have to know that some people might have those abilities switched on earlier, but that it is available to anybody. So channeling is really not hard. It's just believing that you can do it and taking a few of the breathing techniques that we just talked about. It's not hours and hours of meditation. Meditation helps, okay? It helps to still the mind. But as I said, with the experience that the inmates in a prison who were taught to meditate for 1 minute a day and how that transformed the entire prison population, it doesn't matter if it's loud. It doesn't matter if it's busy. I've meditated in a Starbucks before that was super busy and crowded, and you can meditate with your eyes open. Nobody needs to know what you're up to. But it's really noticing what is different from the din around you and what's happening in your head, the noise that's going on inside your head, and noticing what else is coming in. If you've got this little sensation of joy, of hope, of gratitude, of love, and feeling peaceful, chances are you're getting into that altered state. And you can ask, what do I need to know? What do I need to know right now? What is going to be the most beneficial? It is a simple question. And what you hear, how you know that it's different from your ego, is that your ego might be saying, you shouldn't have eaten that burger. That's what you need to know. You shouldn't have eaten the burger. You shouldn't have eaten this. You shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have called that person. You shouldn't have said this, okay? That's your ego talking. When you hear something that feels more like, hey, you're going to be okay. It's going to be okay. That is when you're really getting connected into the field, into energy, into source, into the God presence, into whatever it is you want to call it. Those are all labels that are describing essentially the same thing. You're connecting with the energy that is all around us, and that anybody can do it, and that you have access to that if that is something you feel you need on your path, or that you are drawn to it. So that was kind of how we opened this little chat, was what do you feel drawn to? Do you feel drawn to tarot cards? Do you feel drawn to pendulums, runes, palmistry, reading psychometry, that's the word I was looking for earlier, when you are reading the energy off of objects, okay? You can do all of that if you want to, but you have to believe it, and you have to set an intention that you are going to get into that state where you can connect. And it might not happen right away, but you don't need to create the experience of this is hard work and I'm going to have to work at it for a long time so that I can do this. You can set the intention that connecting is easy, and that the wisdom is there for you, and that it's there for your greatest good, and it's there to help you along your way. The guidance that I've received has been transformative. There's something that people refer to as a spiritually transformative event. Some people, it's like your whole body starts to vibrate. For me, it was like I felt like I was being hugged from the inside and I couldn't stop laughing. And I actually had a witness to this because my 16-year-old was there. Well, at the time was probably closer to 13. And I was just having an experience that came on all of a sudden. I felt like everybody who had ever loved me in my entire life and beyond that was there. And I was really sick at the time. And it was like, it's going to be okay. And we love you and we've got you. And it was one of the most beautiful experiences I've ever had. But that's not the only experience like that I've had. So remember that when you are connecting to Source, the joy is there, the love is there, the peacefulness is there. That is how you know that it's different from your ego or your monkey mind talking to you and trying to tell you nasty things and tell you off and tell you all kinds of lies. You're not good enough. You're not strong enough. You're not meant to do this. Just quiet that. Let those thoughts go, just like the picture on a screensaver. Okay, just let it go. It's there. It's on your mind. But then when it disappears, on to the next image. So just go through your thoughts like you are looking through a filing cabinet and you're just moving on to the next one. And just allow that to be part of the process. And the breath work is the easiest way to get there for sure. It's not the only way to get there, but it definitely is one of the simplest. So I strongly encourage you to just take a 1-minute meditation break out of your day. Everybody can take 1 minute. And anyone who says to me, I can't meditate for 1 minute a day, maybe you're not there yet. Maybe you're not ready. And that's okay too. So just remember, be kind and gentle with yourself. Take the time that it takes to get there. There's no rush. So I'm sending you all a huge aloha, a huge sense of love. And yeah, can't wait to hear what your thoughts are on this journey. If you joined us towards the end, be sure that you watch the replay. Have a really great Friday, everybody.